All right, welcome. Today, we are opening up the one thing every automation engineer needs, their toolbox. We're going to look at the core tools our scripts use to actually interact with a web page, because honestly, mastering these is the absolute key to building automation that actually works. So let's start with a really basic question, right? When you run an automation script, how in the world does it see or touch a web page? How does it know where to click or what to type, or if that button you're looking for is even there? Well, the answer to all of that lies in one single core concept that makes this whole thing possible. And that is the web element. Just think of a web element as a kind of digital handle for anything you see on a page. A button, an input field, a link, you name it. It's the object your script has to grab onto before it can do anything else. And once your script has that handle, once it's got a firm grip on that element, that's when you unlock this whole suite of methods to interact with it. This is where our toolbox really starts to get interesting. So, let's open up the first tray of tools, the Action Toolkit. These are your heavy hitters. These are the methods for doing things, for directly manipulating the page just like a real user would. Okay, so here's a classic example, a workflow you're going to use all the time for any input field. First, you call element.clear. And this is so important. It's a best practice for a reason. It makes sure you're starting with a totally clean slate. Then, and only then, you call element.sendKeys to type in your text, just like a person would. These three methods, these are going to be your absolute workhorses. Click does exactly what it sounds like. SendKeys handles all your typing, and Clear wipes the field clean. They're simple, they're powerful, and trust me, you will use them constantly. But here's the thing. Automation isn't just about clicking and typing, right? It's also about gathering information. And that brings us to our second set of tools, the Information Toolkit. Think of these as your detective tools for inspecting what's actually happening on the page. So this whole toolkit is about inspection. You can look at the code level using getAttribute to see, say, the class of an element, or getTagName to find out if it's an input or a button. Or you can inspect how it looks with getCSSValue for things like color, or getLocation and sizeGet for its exact position and dimensions. And probably the most common one, getText, lets you read the actual words a user sees on the screen. Okay, so we can act on elements and we can inspect them, but how do we actually verify if our test is passing? How do we check conditions? Well, that is the job of our final and maybe most important set of tools, the Verification Toolkit. This whole toolkit is about asking simple yes or no questions. You have your general state checks, like is displayed, which is basically your script asking, hey, is this element even visible to a user right now? Or is enabled, which asks, can a user actually interact with this thing? Then you have more specific tools, like is selected, which is perfect for asking, is this checkbox ticked or not? And you know the beautiful thing about this entire toolkit? The answer you get back is always, always simple, true or false. That's it. And that simplicity is what makes these methods absolutely perfect for your test assertions, the very things that decide if your test passes or fails. So let's put this all together with a real-world example, because knowing which tool to use, and more importantly, why, is what separates a test that's flaky and unreliable from one that is rock solid. So here's a situation we have all been in. You find a button on a page, you can see it, it's right there, it says request a demo. So you use your getText tool to read that label, and it comes back empty. An empty string. Nothing. Your script thinks the button is totally blank. What is going on?
So what happened? What gives? We used the right tool from our information toolkit. We wanted the text. Why did it fail to see something that was so obviously there?
And here it is, the aha moment. The problem wasn't the tool we used, it was the target. When you look at the HTML, you realize the text, request a demo, wasn't directly inside the button tag. Nope. It was nested inside a different tag, maybe a span, that was inside the button. The structure of the page was playing a trick on our script. And this reveals the vital lesson. GetText is very, very literal. It only returns the text that it finds directly within the element you told it to look at. If that text is nested one level deeper inside a child element, you have to target that child element instead. And that brings it all back home, right back to our three toolkits. You've got your Action Toolkit to make things happen, your Information Toolkit to inspect the page, and your Verification Toolkit to check the results. Each one has a totally distinct and absolutely critical job. So look, knowing how and when to use these fundamental methods isn't just some helpful skill. It is the absolute bedrock of good automation. Mastering what's in this toolbox is what's going to let you build scripts that are effective, reliable, and actually easy to maintain.
So I'm going to leave you with a challenge. Now you have the tools, you understand what they do and why. So what complex, interesting user journey are you going to build a test for now?